first thing that you write about in your piece, where you talk about, problems, disguised as, or sort of opportunities disguised as problems, um, and then you also talk about the bias against creativity. Now, I guess my first question is in line with what I'm writing about, because I've dedicated like almost like a whole chapter to how creativity is part and parcel of being a product person, as you're writing as well, which, sometimes I feel gets a bit overlooked, to be honest with you. But that equally comes with a lot of inherent tension. And I feel when you talk about almost like problems, there are opportunities, as well as that bias against creativity. For me, I see tension there. What are your thoughts?
So sorry, come again. What was the question?
So the question is, why do you think people have that kind of inherent bias against creativity?
Okay. So
And
I
even
think
thinking, yeah.
so. The human beings. So the human mind is actually a pattern matching machine. If you want to simplify how
Mm,
our brain works. Now, anything and everything that doesn't fit a particular pattern that is already there in our minds, we automatically tend to resist, or we tend to not agree with it as it is. So that's one
mhm,
of the reasons why you'll find that throughout the history of mankind, you'll find that there have been instances where there have been creative solutions for specific problems, which took ages for people to accept, right from the concept of the Earth going around the sun and not the other way around, to penicillin and how penicillin was created, to the entire fact that the way antibacterials can actually work in the medicine field, and the fact that there are bacteria which can actually survive the gut. So right from also the importance of washing hands of doctors, every one of these has been solution for very specific problems, which are creative solutions, simple solutions in most cases, but also very creative solutions in a lot of other cases. But takes a long time for people to agree and to adopt these creative solutions. Main reason being this inherent thinking amongst us that if it doesn't fit a pattern already that I have, then it must not be right. And that's the way our brains work, and that's probably why you'll find that even for example, when someone is talking about selling a movie idea to producers, they generally want to relate it back to something that they already have a context about. So they might say it's a Die Hard, but with a women cop. They might say it's like Jurassic Park, but instead of dinosaurs, it's going to be, let's say, large tortoises or whatever.
yeah.
Right. So that ability to link to something that we can already understand, that we already have some context to, is very critical in order for us to accept a solution, so to say. And any novel thing is something that uh, is not really great. So another thing that I talk about in my book, Thrive, is the fact that the way our brains function, data or information coming to us, is very similar to how the airport today works. So once you walk into the airport, the first thing that you have to do after having the ticket is to actually go through a screening system, right? So you screen your bags, you screen yourself, which is nothing but threat detection. And anything that is not common knowledge, or is something that's surprising, actually warrants more attention. So if there is something that is in your bag, which the TSA or whatever you call it in your country, they don't see regularly, they will ask you to come aside and actually want to explore further to figure out whether that is something that is a threat or not. And that is how the brain functions as well. So first things first, it'll explore whether or not anything that comes to it is matching a pattern
Yeah.
that it already has. If it doesn't, then it requires additional exploration. And if in the additional exploration you find that it is a threat, then the entire body goes into the threat response scenario, which is, fight, flight, or freeze kind of a scenario, just like an airport does as well. And if it is not a threat, then it decides whether or not to engage with that further or not. So again, because of this multiple layers of processing that is required by human brain for really creative solutions, is why it becomes really difficult for people to accept really creative solutions get go.
Yep. And how does that, especially, from the lens of a product manager, especially because you work on these threats or these novel solutions in a group typically, right? How does that inherent kind of tension due to pattern matching, as you say, manifest itself in your experience?
I think you'll find that in any brainstorming exercise that you are doing to come up with ideas to solve a particular problem using a product that you are trying to develop, you'll find that there is a how do I put it? There is a move towards average. So you'll find that the acceptance in terms of ideas to be taken for the next stage of development is always moving towards average. So if you think of a bell curve, you'll find that even if you have ideas at the extremes, both bad and great, you'll find that the ideas that are accepted are typically at the center, which are average. And for a truly creative idea to actually get through to the next stage requires a few things that the product manager or the person who's driving the entire conversation needs to do in order to be able to take that idea forward. So when I run some of these meetings, I tell them that it is very easy to take a crazy idea and make it workable than a remarkable idea and make it a remarkable idea than it is to take a normal average idea and make it remarkable. So that's also one of the reasons why when we talk about brainstorming, we say, okay, go for extremes. So you take an extreme idea and you can make it remarkable and make it really creative, but you take an average idea and it goes nowhere.
Let me just jot that down because that's a great point.
So I'll send a link to the recording in any case. So
excellent. That's very kind of you. So whilst the light goes off here, because I'm the only one in the building at 7 o'clock.
So you should also look at the work done by another lady. If I'm not wrong, her name is Jennifer Mueller, if I'm not wrong. I'll send you the link of.
Yes, I saw it in your article. Yeah,
yeah,
that'd be fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah. So I also had an interview with her on my podcast. I can send you the link to that show as well.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah. And I guess the next thing I wanted to ask you about is, so I talk a lot in the chapter that I've written and that I'll weave some of your insights into. I talk a lot about this kind of tendency, people to, that inherent tension between people by default, as you say, looking for familiarity, but equally, to be fair, have an interest in novel things and still wanting to explore. But there's always a fine balance. Have you got any views, or how have you seen that manifest itself again on a day-to-day basis?
Let me think about that. So I think there are certain areas of life, or there are certain areas of work where people seek novel ideas, and then there are other areas of life or of work that people seek familiarity. So every time when someone wants to stand out, amongst their peers, they seek novelty. So everyone wants to be the one person to have found a cool gadget or a cool tool or a cool site or a cool product. But the same person who seeks novelty from that perspective may or may not be open to novel ideas when it comes to their regular day-to-day work. So this is something that I have seen many times. Just because someone says that, and talks about novelty all the time, doesn't automatically make them open to novel ideas, so to say. And that's a dichotomy that I'm yet to figure out, what to do about. So does that make sense? Have you seen that as well?
Yeah, 100%. I think, people are, we calculate, right? And it depends, and that influences where we take risks. To your point, I think, I think some people are more prone to what I see as looking for novel and taking risks and really putting their money where their mouth is. And maybe that's because it's a sense of quiet confidence, or they feel secure in their jobs and their organizations, versus others where they might lack that quiet confidence. And, as much as they like the idea of trying things and failing and learning and trying again, they might not have the confidence or the security to do so. Absolutely. I think go on.
No, and the culture of the people around them, also plays a big role, because if they see around them people above them in the hierarchy, also trying to do interesting stuff, running experiments, which may or may not fail, gives them the confidence that they can do something similar as well. Most of the times, as you go up in the hierarchy, you either become more risk averse or you become more risk taking, depending upon how your career trajectory in the past has been.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, and I see that a lot.
Yeah.
Cool. And how do you? There was at least to the final point I wanted to get your thoughts on. So let's assume situations which I have seen and do see a lot, especially working in kind of cross-functional setups where, I really believe in kind of what they call cognitive diversity. You get people with different perspectives, and especially if those different backgrounds and perspectives start taking risks and being creative, it equally can lead to conflict and disagreement. What's your take on that? Have you seen that? Is that logical? Can you explain that?
It happens. It's supposed to happen that way, because once you have people with cognitive diversity, obviously they'll have different perspectives. They will have different takes on the same things. That's what you want the diversity for. But I think what works really well is clear definition of boundaries in terms of what is off limits and what is allowed is very critical in that perspective. And also, what I've seen work really well in such an environment is to have a strong leader who not only is confident about himself and his ability to hold himself, but also to provide a space where people can actually poke holes at the ideas, at the concepts, but not at each other. So the moment that starts to happen, the leader is quietly confident enough to stop it then and there, and bring them back that okay, you can poke as many holes as you want on the idea itself, but it is not okay to start attacking people. So that's something that I've seen really well. If you don't have that strong leader, and if you have cognitive diversity, and if you don't have how do we call it, I remember reading somewhere, listening to someone say, creativity without borders is a recipe for chaos, or something like that. Yeah. So unless you have very clearly defined the boundaries, allowing free flowing creativity is a recipe for chaos.